I would literally say this. I've never once questioned whether or not I could do something. I only ever question whether or not I want to bad enough. And Kevin would be like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And I'd be like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, no one else believes in themselves to that same level. But people who believe in themselves a lot don't know that they do because everyone around them acts like they do. And they mirror you. And it's mostly unconscious too.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne. Now, I always try and give value back to my audience, and also I try and be very effective. And in order to do that, I thought, let me just bring two excellent guests on as opposed to one. So today we've got Alan Lazarus.
You got it right the first time.
Lazarus.
All good. The world does not revolve around my last name, man. You're good.
Good. And Kevin Palmieri. I'm sure I got that one right. That's not the most complicated one. And these folks are from the Next Level University. Now, I've done a couple of podcasts, but between the two of them, they've done almost 2,000 podcasts, reaching 175 countries, over 1 million listens, and making lots of cash money, which is amazing. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is how to become the most productive and effective version of yourself. And Kevin and I were chatting just a little bit before we started about only 1%, or actually, it's not even 1%. It's like 0.1% of people in the world are extremely successful. We mentioned Jeff Bezos, who's now jacked. He's got a babe girlfriend. He's one of the richest guys in the world. Nobody looking at him growing up would have said, wow, this guy is going to be one of the richest guys in the world. And what that does is it gives us the opportunity to think about any of us can do it if we have the right mindset, obviously right place, right time. But it's not set in stone that you're going to be a bum or going to be in the middle class for the rest of your life. And I think that's where you guys come in as well. You guys have both hit rock bottom and have come back, not the top 0.01%, but you are in the top 1% in the global top 100 podcasts. So that's something to shout about and crow about as well. So after that long and rambling introduction, welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us, Nicholas. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This is Kevin and I, well, myself more than Kev, tends to be long-winded, so we've got a short format. I'll have to work really hard to keep my mouth shut on this one. It's also one of my favorite topics of all time, so
I'm going to give you guys lots of rope to work with, so don't worry. Now, I have to just make one comment for everyone who has the pleasant experience of going to your website, which is nextleveluniverse.com. And that is that you'll see Alan in shorts. Now, that's very brave. I haven't seen terribly many entrepreneurs with their shoots in cargo shorts or just by the knees. So good job on that.
Thank you. That's just pure stupidity is what that is. That's just bad marketing.
Yeah, there's no
You got to take a photograph.
Bad marketing. If it's good marketing, it was on accident. I promise you that.
Now, I just want to go through one or two little details here in terms of Alan. So your ultimate goal is to help people become better in business, love, life, health, and wealth. I mean, that's covering a few things. Dedicating your knowledge and resources to becoming an entrepreneur and peak performance coach. So your whole role between the two of you is to share your learning, share experience, and share sort of tried and trusted techniques to help people get on the right track. So maybe let's go a little bit into the background of your business and how the two of you, who come from slightly different backgrounds, I think, got together and created this business.
Take it away, Alan.
Okay, so Kevin and I were born and raised in the same small town. And I am actually going to say this, a small-minded town. Although I think some people from our past might be offended by that. It is what it is. And we both had very humble beginnings, so we both grew up without fathers. So my father passed away when I was 2 years old. Kevin didn't meet his father till he was 27. I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. Kevin and I were actually friends in middle school. He came to one of my birthday parties in middle school.
We played spin the bottle in the basement with the popular girls.
Yeah, Kev says he peaked early. But it is kind of a wild story because in high school, I was sort of the type A achiever guy, straight A's, troubles at home, but no one really knew about that. Dealing with my traumas with achievement for sure. And Kev was sort of insecure and went the other way with it. So he didn't like me and I didn't like that he didn't like me. So we didn't get along very well. And then when we were in our mid-20s, we both had sort of quarter life crises. I got in a car accident, my fault, death experience. And while I was physically okay, because I was in a very safe car, fortunately, this was not a fender bender. This is a 30 mile an hour head-on collision. Not good. but I was in a Volkswagen Passat. Thank you, Volkswagen, safest car ever. And so I lived, but physically we were okay, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for me, I was not okay at all because my father passed away when he was 28 in a vehicle, in a car. And I've seen pictures of his car. I saw pictures of my car. They don't look very different. So this was just my quarter life existential crisis sort of thing. Reevaluate my whole existence. Kev had suicidal ideation. I'll let him talk about that. But he had sort of his existential crisis in his mid-20s as well. And that's when we both sort of found self-improvement. And we sort of found what we were missing. And we also found each other. And we both spent every Father's Day together. We now do a charity every Father's Day. And he started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast, and I was his first guest. And I had a YouTube channel that he insists was not a podcast. It was going to be, called Conversations Change Lives, and he was my first guest. And so then we just teamed up and had the worst titled podcast of all time, which was the Hyperconscious Podcast meets Conversations Change Lives podcast.
The SEO for that, perfect.
It was that
less
good.
than ideal.
Yeah, it was just as good as the cargo shorts, I think. But then we teamed up every week. We were doing episode. And eventually it was like, dude, we got to go all in on one. So we went all in on the Hyperconscious Podcast, change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. And then we rebranded to Next Level University, probably 700 or so episodes in. And now we're coming up on 2,000 in a couple weeks.
Well said.
I mean, to get to 2,000, I mean, I remember when I got to 40 episodes, I was like, oh, God, kill me. And, pushing through, I was like, I had to get to 100 episodes. That was sort of my goal. I thought, if I get to 100, then I know I can do this. And, sometimes just that pushing through is part of it. And I say to my class that if you're not sweating, if your brain isn't sweating, it doesn't mean physically uncomfortable, but if you're not pushing yourself a little bit, you're probably not doing something worthwhile. So you've got to get past that sort of resistance level. And I'm sure since you do coaching as well in terms of physical coaching, you know that once you get into the rhythm and do it a couple of times, it becomes much, much easier. Yeah. So Kevin, I mean, has Alan skipped anything there or?
Yeah, he did, Nicholas. He did. As I told you behind the scenes, I built this business by myself, brick by brick. No, I think we do have very, very different stories. But I think at the end of the day, our deep pain is something that we wanted to try to find a way to help people with. And if our success is a suggestion of anything, it's a suggestion of it's got to be bigger than you. And the 2,000 episodes is awesome, but it's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about Alan. It's about we want to add more impact than anybody else possibly could. And if you do want to add more impact, if you do want to become more successful, if you do want to be more deeply in love, you're going to have to become the type of person that's capable of that. And that's one of the most common misconceptions. A lot of us just aren't where we want to be yet because we haven't become the type of person capable of getting there. And that's really the thing that we're focused on more than anything.
Now, both of you have mentioned you've had some traumatic activities or traumatic things that have happened to you. And I just want to talk quickly from a position of framing. A lot of people say they are victims of, these particular things. So you're a victim in your car accident, etc. Alan, is that how you guys frame it? How do you sort of see this differently to sort of the typical mindset of people going, these things happen to me. I'm a victim. I need to have the victim mindset, and that is how I'm going to get over these things. How do you guys differ in your way of approaching these traumatic things that happen to people and happen to a lot of people?
I think Kevin and I will have two different answers to that, and I think it'll be a good two different answers, not in a negative way, because I think it's a duality. I think it depends how much self-belief you have. So if you study self-efficacy, that's the psychological term for self-belief. It's one's belief in their own abilities to achieve something externally. So people say adversity is your advantage, which I think is kind of BS, and Kevin does as well, unless you have high self-belief. If you don't have high self-belief and a positive identity, adversity is just adversity, and then you're going to play the victim. With my car accident, even when I told the story, I literally said, my fault. Extreme ownership.
Mm.
I was on the end of adversity, didn't realize it till I was later because I didn't know any different, but I always took over ownership. When my stepdad left, I probably blamed myself. And my trauma response to that was aim higher, work harder, get smarter, and I'll prove my worth, which worked and didn't work at the same time. It worked in terms of external results and money. It didn't work at all in terms of internal fulfillment, which we can talk about later. But if you have high self-efficacy and high self-belief, which I did but didn't know it because it's unconscious, until I partnered with Kev, and he's like, dude, that doesn't make any sense. I would say stupid things like this. I would literally say this. I've never once questioned whether or not I could do something. I only ever questioned whether or not I want to bad enough. And Kevin would be like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And I'd be like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, no one else believes in themselves to that same level. But people who believe in themselves a lot don't know that they do because everyone around them acts like they do. And they mirror you. And it's mostly unconscious too, so you don't know any different, right? I wasn't born like, ooh, I'm going to believe in myself a bunch. You just are wired that way. Gary Vee would be a good example of someone who just has undying self-belief and he has no idea other people don't. He's like, what do you mean? Just work 30 years. It'll all work. It's like, dude, other people don't have that same tenacity, that same persistence, that same capacity. And it's built unconsciously. We have a little formula for it we can get into. But ultimately, I think Kev played the victim unconsciously. I'll let him talk about that. But I think I didn't know I was doing this, but I took ownership for everything, even if it wasn't my fault.
Yeah, to Alan's point, I grew up I didn't know my dad. My dad left us. We were broke. Didn't feel smart. I felt super insignificant, super insecure. Didn't go to college. Worked a bunch of dead-end jobs. And then eventually I got everything that I thought I wanted and somehow still ended up sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide. So I think for most of my life, I did feel like a victim who was not in control. Then I got all the quote-unquote stuff that I wanted. And then I took responsibility for the fact that I kind of just blindly chased happiness and what I thought would fix internal problems. And it was a real wake-up call for me when I was sitting on the edge of bed contemplating suicide. So I took ownership later in life. And now, Alan and I think that's one of the reasons we work so well together. It's like, yeah, no, dude, that's my bad. That was on me. I made that mistake. Or, you know, you're right. That kind of was a dumb idea in retrospect. And I think that's one of our superpowers is it's not about who's right. It's about what's best. And that's something that is a through line. And we're not just saying that because we're here. Like, that is the conversation we have behind the scenes. It's not, I don't get a check mark if I have the right answer. I would rather us have the right answer for the situation. It doesn't have to be my answer. It doesn't have to be Alan's. That is one of our superpowers for sure.
When it comes to, you talk about taking ownership, I think that's really tough for a lot of people. And is a sticking point because you don't want to be seen as wrong and as you said right at the beginning, Alan, you fessed up that it was, your fault for the car accident. And, just getting over that first hump allows you to start moving forward, I guess. And that'll take us into sort of the next session. You mentioned that you've got some tools and techniques that you can help that folks can use to improve themselves. Maybe let's go through some of those. So what is it that you actually offer or do to folks? Because you mentioned quite a few things here: business, love, life, health, wealth. I mean, that's everything. So how does that system of yours work? I mean, you just fix one part of this for somebody or the whole bunch? How does that work? Well,
I'm a professional at how to lose all credibility in cargo shorts as a business coach. So that's really what I'm working on most of the time these days. Check the box. One of our team members, Amy, she goes on other podcasts as well, and she's awesome. And she said, dude, the cargo shorts, what are we doing, man? You're a business coach. But in all seriousness, Kevin and I've been mentoring 10 years, coaching 8. I say that because I want you to know I'm not just another talking head on the internet. I have 26 clients currently that I work with, and it's been hundreds over the years. And when you work with that many people from that many backgrounds, from that many countries, with that many different goals and core values and different strengths and weaknesses, you see patterns. And one of the patterns we saw is self-belief. So the first thing we always start with is self-belief. Now, the second most important thing, based on my 10 years of experience mentoring and coaching, is actually humility. Inward humility. Whenever I say this, it's always like, well, you obviously don't have that. I don't think anyone sees me as humble. I meant inwardly. Inward humility is, yep, my bad. I kind of suck, so I'm going to go get better. You know what? I'm not that great of a communicator. You know what? I'm actually kind of lazy, and I need to work on that. What I've found really ironic and paradoxical is the people who think they're hardworking are actually not. The people who think they're lazy, like my girlfriend, are the most hardworking people you've ever met. It's unbelievable. And so everything's very paradoxical. So self-belief and humility are the first two things, but they don't usually come hand in hand.
And I guess a lot of people don't like coming to that realization.
Oh, it's terrible. So Kev was seemingly humble when in reality he just didn't believe in himself. And he would say that, not just me. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of self-belief, but I struggled with arrogance at times because I believed in myself so much. And so I would be overly optimistic and he'd be overly pessimistic. So we would balance each other out. We'd host a live event. We've done them every year for 7 years. And he'd be like, dude, what if it snows? And I was like, oh my God, I would never have thought of that.
Or what if nobody comes? And hey, it's happened.
Nobody. Okay, we got 22 people that year through massive pain and failure. So yeah, we've lost money on most of them. But he's naturally pessimistic. Productively paranoid is what we call it, and I'm naturally optimistic. And I think we've actually switched places in some cases now he starts to believe in himself, and I'm like, dude, are we okay? Are we gonna be fine? But I think as you mature, you get to center. And I realize why everyone thinks I'm arrogant now. It took me 30 years to figure this out. Number one, I'm a math modality of thinking, so I speak with a lot of certainty because it's actually calculated. And number two is if I'm level 10 self-belief inside myself, but I'm only 8 humility, I'm gonna appear level 2 arrogant. So if you have level 10 self-belief over here, you better have level 10 humility on the other side in order to stay centered. But I didn't learn that. No one teaches a course on humility. So people who seem humble might just actually be not confident. And then there's some people who seem really confident that are actually deeply insecure and they're puffing up to pretend they're super confident when in reality they're super insecure and they just are doing that socially. So the first thing to build is self-belief. The second thing is humility. The third would be self-worth. And we kind of have formulas for each one, although the humility one I definitely am still trying to figure out.
When somebody comes to you, or let's just go through the thought process of somebody coming to get coaching from you or work with Next Level University, what kind of questions do they need to ask themselves? Because I'm sure one aspect of it is that they need to be ready to listen to what you're saying. It's nice to read a website which says we're going to solve these kind of things. But if you're not ready to take advice, I suppose the old saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Is that a challenge that you guys face? And when is the right time for folks to come to you?
It's a great question. Well, so here's the thing. The way it's set up is no matter where you are from a self-improvement set point or no matter where you are from a financial set point, there is somewhere for you. So the reason we have 2,000 episodes almost is because we want a free thing for somebody to listen to every day. I would say if you're somebody who is ready to dip your toe into self-improvement, your toe's already in. You want to go up to your ankle at least. I would say the podcast is a really great place to start. And then I would say, and I'll let Alan speak to this because we've diverted in the way we coach and the specific people that we coach. But the deeper you get, the more you're going to have to ask yourself on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do I believe in myself? On a scale of 0 to 10, how much self-worth do I have? What are the excuses I've been making that have just been coming back to bite me in the butt? What are the things that I have been avoiding for a long period of time that I'm sick of avoiding? Like the deeper you get in your self-improvement journey, in your personal development journey, I think the more potentially painful the questions become. So you have to be somebody who's committed to truth. Not just external truth, but like the internal truth of who you are. I am not as smart as Alan. I'm just not. That's the truth of it. It's not disempowering. I'm not talking down to myself. It's just factually correct. If I go and I think I'm as smart as Alan, I'm not going to take his feedback. I'm not going to let him lead me. And it's never going to work, right? So, yeah, I think somebody who's ready to be very self-aware and has begun that journey, that's the thing that always jumps off the page for me. Alan, I know your perspective is different because you work differently, but...
Well, Kev has a high readiness score. He's very coachable. And the number one thing I look for now is inward humility. Inward humility is, I need to catch you working on yourself when no one's watching. I have a filter of the people that are not ready. It's called UNMEDSI. And I don't want this to come off as judgmental, but I also know that through massive pain and failure over the years of hundreds of clients, I do now understand who I'm good for and who I'm not good for. And again, Kev does podcast coaching, I do business coaching, but I started out with fitness coaching, and then it was mindset coaching, and then it was peak performance coaching, which I still have to update my website, our website, obviously, because that's still on there. And then it was business consulting, and now it's business coaching. So over the last 8 years of coaching, 10 years mentoring, the only difference between mentoring and coaching is I finally started getting paid. But ultimately, the filter that I finally figured out over the years, because what would happen is there'd be 2 types of people that would come into our world. The first type is a high readiness score, high humility. If anything, they have low self-worth and just enough self-belief to get started. Those are my favorite. Those are the heart-driven, non-delusional, ready to actually be coached and poured into, and really ready to do the work. They're sick and tired of of not winning, and they're ready to do the work. Kevin was there when we met for sure. He does a really good job at level setting himself all the time. He's not delulu. There's a lot of people that are what I call delulu, and I say that playfully, but they're just very delusional. And myself included in the past, so I get it. But the people that have inflated self-worth and who want to achieve massive goals with minimal effort, those people are very, very, very hard to coach. Because the two types of people that come are people like Kev, who think they're worse than they really are. Kev is better than he thinks. It's so easy to coach someone like that because all I have to do is say, hey, dude, you're actually smarter than you think. Right? That's easy for me. The people who think they're brilliant that aren't, the people who think they're hardworking when they're not, you have to really, it's hard to pour into someone who thinks they're awesome already.
So not going to get terribly many federal employees doing your coaching.
There's a very specific type of person that I coach, and I'll just give you the filter because I think this will be powerful for people if they're out there. The filter is UNMEDSI. It's an acronym. So it's unstable, naive, manipulative, entitled, delusional, significance-driven. You know those people with the birthday month? Yeah. Remember how I said at the beginning, the world doesn't revolve around my last name? Oh, by the way, it's Lazarus, right? It's that. The world doesn't revolve around me. I'm not a narcissist, okay? So arrogant and then immature. Now, all of us have some of those. I'm immature for sure at times. I'm arrogant at times. I'm definitely naive as shit, okay? But I'm not manipulative. If you have a high score, I will not coach you under any circumstance because it's going to be bad for you and for me, and it's going to waste our time. Now, here's the thing. The closer and closer and closer you get to Kevin and myself in the business, the harder the truths are to handle. So the more emotional maturity you have to handle it. So we have sort of a filtration system. You don't just bring someone from zero to the NBA. And so you have to kind of earn your way to the Olympics, so to speak. And I know that sounds maybe entitled, but it's not. It's more to protect other people and ourselves from truths that maybe people aren't ready for, myself included.
Well, you make a very good point, and this, I think, is something that people can take for business and life in general. You've got to choose your clients because some are going to be really bad and some are not going to work out. So that'll cost you time, money, frustration, and all of those things. I want to go a little bit into some nuts and bolts, which is value that people are going to get out of this process. Because I guess one of the key parts of this is that people have to have some kind of goals or some kind of what does success look like for them. How many people come to you and don't know what success looks like for them or what goals they should go after? Because it's very easy if you've got a goal to work towards it. But a lot of people, I think, are floundering around and don't know. Is that something that you help with? Is that something that you help people sort of figure out what goals and what success is going to look like for them in all of those elements that we spoke about? Business, love, life, health, wealth, etc.
Well, Kev does podcast coaching, so his is more podcast-oriented goals. So I'll let you go first, brother, because I tend to be long-winded.
This is one of the things, and I think this crosses everything. I'm at the stage now, and this is going to sound weird, but stick with me. I don't really care what someone's goals are. I care what the process that they're willing to put up with until they accomplish the goals is. Like, are you willing to go through the process? Because, and Nicholas, you know this as well as anyone, I'm sure, a lot of people have set goals based on naive understanding of what it'll take to get there. So I've worked with a lot of people who come to me and say, I want to have the podcast that you guys have. Cool. I can tell you exactly how to do that because we did that. And then when I start laying out, expect 12 to 14 hour days for the first probably at least 4 years. They're like, no, I want the result, but I want it like faster and easier. It's like, oh, that's not real. That's not how this works. So I think, at least for me, from a podcast perspective, oftentimes what I'm trying to do is just re-level set expectations of tell me what you think success is, and then tell me what you think the process that you're willing to put up with until you accomplish it is. Because here's the thing. Keeping the podcast going was just as hard as getting here in the first place. And I think that's one of the convenient things that people leave out. They're like, yeah, we got 1 million listens and $1 million. And we kept going. And it got harder, believe it or not. So, yeah, I would say 100% from
significantly harder.
Somehow.
Well, to Kev's point, I think this is one of the most misunderstood things in the world. I used to say the biggest lie is that success makes life easier. When you get to the NBA or the NFL or the Olympics, life is harder, not easier. Now you're competing with the best in the world. And so when we crossed the $1 million mark, life didn't get any easier. It's actually more responsibility, more team members, more revenue, more taxes, more. Everything's harder. So if you're not improving yourself in tandem with those external results, and you got it from perception or from social status or from going viral, it's going to be a lot harder to sustain. And so people do come to me often with very little clarity on the who, what, when, where, why. Who am I? What do I want to achieve? Where am I now? Where am I going? Where was I before? That kind of thing. And for me, my sort of system has become, it's probably sounds complex, but it's fairly simple in my mind because it used to be really complex. It's goals, priorities, metrics, habits, skills. And then after those are in alignment, which actually isn't, I could do that in a 1-hour session with pretty much anyone, but that's because I've been doing this for a really long freaking time. So it took me 10 years to get to the point where I can do that. But now that I'm here, if I had an hour with you, we could get clear on your goals, your priorities, your metrics, your habits, and your skills. And I do it quarterly, 90 days at a time. But it rolls up to your decade. So the weeks roll up to the months roll up to the quarters roll up to the years roll up to the decade rolls up to your dreams, essentially. But here's the thing. Once you get those in alignment, you realize that it's all inner blocks after that. Because I have metrics and habits, and everybody tracks, Kevin, myself included. And you realize, okay, well, here's what I know I'm supposed to do to achieve my goal that I think I want, and I'm not doing it. Well, there's the inner work. Why am I not doing it? Okay, I'm afraid of failure. Okay, I'm afraid of looking like a failure. Okay, I'm afraid of looking dumb. I need everything to be perfect before I start. Okay, well, nothing's perfect. We're 2,000 episodes in, still making mistakes. Right? I had the wrong freaking monitor when I came in here today. Kevin's mic is already, he knows, a little low. It's a little bit lower audio than you and I. Right? So we're not perfect. Even 2,000 episodes in, there's no such thing. But everyone has these inner blocks, and another big one, big one. Most people don't want to start because they look like failures out of the gate, especially on Facebook or Instagram where your families, your aunts, your uncles, your judgmental relatives are watching. Like, if you're not willing to look like a failure, you probably never will get to the point where you're very successful. And then there's the other side of the coin. This is the smaller percentage. Some people are very afraid of success. These are the people that have shame around being better than. So Kev just talked about how he thinks I'm smarter than him. I do believe that that's true, and the old me never could have said that out loud without hating myself and or being ostracized socially. But at the end of the day, I've learned how to be mature enough to own whatever is accurate. But in the past, as a kid, I had this negative association with success because every time I would get straight A's or whatever, my relationships would get weird and usually fail out of them fear of me outgrowing them or whatever it might be. And then there's trauma from my past in that too. So some people are afraid of success, some people are afraid of failure, some people are deeply afraid of judgment. All of us are afraid of all three, but usually we have one really big one that's holding us back. So yes, people come without goals, but once we get the goals, which isn't that hard, at least from my perspective, after that, it's what's the process, to Kevin's point. And then you realize I'm not doing the process. And then you don't know why that is. That's the inner work. That's the inner engineering that needs to happen.
I've had that similar experience doing a lot of work with AI, and it can do a ton of things. And I wrote a beautiful prompt, and I wrote out what I'm going to be doing for the next 6 months, almost hour by hour. And it's sitting there on Notion and it hasn't started yet because it's like, geez, what have I done? And yeah, getting started and all these things stopping you. Oh, it's too much work, etc., etc. But something Kevin said really stuck out for me. And this is that sometimes your goals might be wrong, or you might be misguided in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And I love that. I think that's something that a lot of businesses do wrong as well. They might be chasing down the wrong, or going down the wrong lane and aiming for completely the wrong things for their business. And I love that you spoke about that, because if you can sort that out sooner, you'll have much greater success and clarity in terms of what you're trying to do. We've discussed, you've got the podcast, you've made cash money, your team has grown nicely, 2,000 episodes, amazing. What is next for you guys? So what does success look like for the two of you? You're still two young bucks. What does the next 10 years look like for you two?
This is always a really hard question to answer, and I feel so boring when I answer it because it's the same stuff we're doing now, but better. For me, that is, I want to be more deeply in love. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better business partner. I want to be a better leader. I want to be jacked. I want to be in better shape than I am today. I want us to make more money so we can pour back into the business and impact more people. I want to be healthier, wealthier, and more in love. Yeah.
Is that all?
That's it. Listen, I don't ask for much, I'm a simple man. But here's the thing, and I think this is super important. I also expect the next 5 years of my life to suck relatively bad in order to get there. And I'm okay with that's what I signed up for, right? That's what I want. I aspire to that. And here's the best answer I can give in one word: fulfillment. For 5 years from today, I'm more fulfilled than I am today. I am successful.
Nice. So he gave the macro answer in terms of life. I'll give the answer in terms of career or business or
as
success.
As you should,
external
as the business,
success.
as the CEO of this thing.
So NLU, next level you, level up yourself. Holistic self-improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet every single day, completely free. 1% improvement every day. Heart-driven, but no BS. Holistic self-improvement for dream chasers. Okay, that's Next Level University. Awesome. That's phase 1 of our company. Phase 2, and that was sort of our mid to late 20s into our early 30s. The next phase, we're branching off, and we're still doing NLU. We're not ever stopping that. I mean, that is the main train right there. We did that last night at 9 o'clock at night, getting off late because we aren't missing. My bad. That was on me. That was on me. Kev had at 9 a.m. too. I'm sorry, brother. If he looks tired, it's because of me. The next phase, the next chapter is PGU and BGU. So NLU is Next Level U, pun intended, self-improvement. Level up yourself. The next phase is Podcast Growth University, how to start, grow, scale, and monetize your podcast. Then Business Growth University, I'm about to start. How to start, grow, scale, and monetize your business. So we call them listeners, longers, and business owners. Listeners learn from us, and that's level up yourself, holistic self-improvement, health, wealth, life, and love. It's a lot. We are overwhelming as hell. Okay, and then PGU is longers. They want to build their own podcasts and build their own communities. They want to have an impact. And then Business Growth University is for business owners. These are people who have to generate revenue, otherwise they go out of business. And in the beginning, Kevin and I were self-improvement coaches, mindset coaches, and we realized very quickly that we love self-improvement and we think that's where everything germinates, for lack of better phrasing. However, no one pays for that shit. What they do pay for is podcast production and business coaching. But guess what? We coach podcasters and business owners. We end up half the time talking about, well, if you want your podcast to grow, you have to grow. You want your business to grow, you have to grow. So it's level up yourself, level up your podcast, level up your business. We've done a group coaching program now for 17 groups, 17 quarters in a row, 4.25 years. We're coming up on our 18th group. And it was all self-improvement. And then we were in the 16th group. We were recruiting for it, for lack of better phrasing, inviting people to it. And we had 6 podcasters. And I messaged Kev. I said, dude, this is all podcasters. Let's just revamp this program to be a podcast-specific program. So the first 2 sessions are level up yourself. Second 2 sessions are level up your podcast. Last 2 sessions are level up your business. And we've been doing that now. We're halfway through our second group. We're about to go into the business phase. But if you want to build a podcast, a brand, and a business, that's going to take a whole nother level of you than if you just want to improve yourself a little bit. But to Kevin's point, you want to dip your toe in, or in this case, your ankles. Next Level U is there for you. And then some of those listeners will become longers. Some of those longers will become business owners. And the deeper you get into the core of Kevin and I's world, the more necessity, the more accountability, the more truth, the more hardcore, the more depth. So we have breadth, wide net, a lot of people, and then we have depth, which is specifically for podcasters and business owners, and that's the future of NLU. So NLU feeds PGU, PGU feeds BGU, and BGU feeds NLU. And, obviously BGU will be the one that makes the most money, but NLU will be the one that reaches the most people. And then PGU will be Kevin in the middle saying, hey, I'm still here.
I'm just podcasting about podcasting. You just live.
So, step 1, NLU. Step 2, step 3, profit. I love it.
I do want to make this clear, though. Kevin actually, believe it or not, seriously, his departments actually generate the most revenue. I was being playful.
I do okay.
Party on.
Out here, Nicholas,
He has crushed it, honestly. We produce 58 podcasts as of today, assuming his tracker is correct.
It is.
Well, that's quite exciting. Yeah, well, I mean, we should talk podcast then. I think that we can maybe do on the next episode and discuss, how do you take your podcast to the next level? But I think that would be very nice as a separate one. So, guys, this has been very cool chatting to you and getting to know you a little bit. And obviously, we can see the personality differences. And I love that there's the glass half empty mindset and the glass half full mindset. And for a successful business, you need diversity. That's the kind of diversity that you need in a business, diversity of thought, which is fantastic. Where can I send folks if they want to learn a little bit more about the two of you, perhaps join in one of your sessions or have a look at some of the great free resources that you've got?
The website, head on over to www.nextleveluniverse.com. It's not nextleveluniversity.com. Somebody had it. They're like, look, I'm going to need $10,000 for that. We said, look, we have $0 at the time, so we're going to have to go in a different direction. So yeah, that is the website. And then as Alan said, the podcast is every day, 7 days a week. We are trying to just help people get a little bit better, and you'll get a really good idea of our personalities. And we're very transparent about what's going on behind the scenes. So you'll hear about our lives and our families and all that stuff.
Yeah, we want to make it something where instead of we've arrived, Kevin and I, we really try to make it feel like you're on the growth journey with us. It's not all, here's where we used to be, here's where we are now, here's how we did it. There's obviously some of that, but some of it is, we got into it earlier today about my punctuality. Like, we're talking about what we're going through and growing through in real time. And a lot of my clients listen to the show and they'll say, I feel like I hang out with you every day. I said, that's exactly what I hope it feels like. So you're not alone on this growth journey, even though it does feel that way if you don't have a family that's into self-improvement.
I love that authenticity, and I think people are looking for that. So, Kevin and Alan, thank you so much for your time. And I'll be listening in to see the good days and the bad days.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicholas. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's KUHNE.no for more information.